All right, it is time. I may regret it, but it is time to check in with Keith Bilbrey to see what kind of questions that you have been leaving for me in the comments in our my2cents@tbn.tv mailbox. Keith, was it empty this week, or did we have something in there?
Oh, no. We got some jewels this
Okay.
week. Kylie from Maryland. Did Biden violate the law when he offered free college and forgiveness of student loan debt? Isn't that buying people's votes, which is a direct violation of the federal law?
If every politician were arrested for promises they made to get votes, there wouldn't be any politicians left. They'd all be in prison. Which may not be a bad idea. I don't know. Maybe that's what we should do. No, it is not against the law unless you offer something of value very specifically, and it has to be a quid pro Joe. See what I did there? Yeah. So it is legal to say, if you vote for me, I'll give you a free lunchbox, or I'll give you, a television set. But if you say, if you vote for me, I'll pay you $5 for your vote. Now that is illegal. That may have happened. I don't know. It could have been. I don't know. Anyway, but no, what he did was not illegal. It was just a typical kind of campaign promise, and there's a bunch of them. What else we got, Keith?
Well, George from West Palm Beach, Florida. Why don't you just accept defeat? The courts won't overturn any of these elections because without seeing the fraud happening in person, you can't prove it happened. All you're doing is wasting time and making the U.S. look bad in front of the entire world.
Well, I'll tell you what would make the U.S. look even worse is if it turned out that the election wasn't on the up and up. That would really make us look bad. So when you say you can't prove it and it won't change anything, one of the elections in Michigan has already been overturned. It was a local race. It wasn't the presidential, but it was because when they went back and looked at the ballots, they found out that they had announced, good old media, had announced someone to be the winner. Turned out he wasn't the winner. It was the other guy. So it does happen. We'll see when the votes are all tabulated and we find out if we can, we may not be able to, but if we can verify that the ballots are legal and completely legitimate, then we'll find out the final results of the election. Okay.
At the beginning of the November 7th show, you said that Joe Biden would be the next president. This is not true. It was just reported that 132,000 votes in Georgia have been tossed out. The election's being contested. The ballots in Pennsylvania and Georgia, as well as Michigan, really made me mad that the former governor would not know that the election was fixed for Biden. The news media does not get to pick the president of the United States. Why should I watch the show again? This election is anything but over.
I did not make the declaration. I recognized what was being said, but I also very carefully listened to the whole thing. This is where somebody watches part of it. They get mad, they get up and run to the refrigerator and eat half a gallon of ice cream and miss the rest of the story. Because the rest of the story, I made it very clear, we don't yet have the results. And that's my position right now. We don't know. So I would say to you, go back, watch the video, and then have the other half gallon of the ice cream.
Then you'll know the rest
of the story. All right.
Well, Ellen from Miami, Florida says, I really was expecting for you to mention about the flagrant fraud that took place in the elections, which you seem to have ignored altogether.
Don't know how I have ignored it. I've been talking about it all night long, and it's on my newsletter every single day, twice a day. So let me say again, I don't know personally how it's going to turn out. I have some real doubts and suspicions about it, but I'm not in a position to go through and look at all the ballots and see what they're marked and whether or not there were people who were voting who were dead. If they were, we should tell them they can't do that. But in the meantime, what we do need to do is demand, not ask, demand that we get a clear accountability for how the ballots were handled, where they came from, and if the people who voted those ballots were legitimate voters and had a right to vote that particular ballot. Because if not, your vote got stolen, and that's why it matters. It truly does. Do we have any others?
One more. Wayne Brown asked, just wondering how it's not voter fraud if you have more votes than registered voters in a state. Thank you. Love your channel.
Oh, finally I got somebody who likes me. This is good. Well, that is a pretty big issue, isn't it? If more people vote than are registered, how does that even happen? And I do think that the biggest questions regarding the election and the questions thereof come down to statistical possibilities, not just probabilities, possibilities. And people a lot smarter than me, which would be most people, many of whom are trained mathematicians and statisticians, have made the observation that there are certain things that have been presented in the voting process that are statistically impossible. That's why I think there are some questions that we still need answers to. And that's why I think the media was way premature to go out and say Joe Biden is the president-elect. And you know, Al Gore took 37 days. And that was only because in one state and in 3 counties in that one state there were some questions. 37 days. Why is everybody in the media so in a hurry? This stretches over at least 5, if not a dozen states, and involve hundreds of counties and hundreds of thousands of votes. Hey, be sure and leave your questions, your comments, or even your vitriol in the comments below, or you can send them to my2cents@tbn.tv. Now, if you're seeing this, I know you've enjoyed that video. I mean, how could you not, after all? So you know what you should do? Leave a like, click on the subscribe button below, and hit the notification bell next to it so you'll always know when I have another video up for you to enjoy.